Good morning, everyone, and thank you for making our time to join our webinar series that has been going on for about a month now. Today, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Peter. Um, I work with FOAPS. I work in the Programs and Grants Department. Today's session will be led by the head of programs, Nandi, and today's topic is grant search approach. And I am very sure that this session will be very enlightening and engaging as we talk about how we can find grants and the approaches to sourcing for revenue for our various organizations. And I know for a fact that Nandi is more than capable to lead us through this session. So without wasting any more further time, uh, I would like Nandi to just take the floor as we put our questions in the chat box. Also, our names, organizations, contact details so that we can know who is participating, and we can also actively engage after this session. So thank you very much. So Nandi, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome, everyone. Greetings. It's really my pleasure to have you again for a webinar series. Today we'll go through our fifth module, and I'm particularly very excited to walk you through it because I'm the grant of program head for FOAPS, and this is something. I think it's a topic that really speaks to each and every one of us, especially during this hard time that we all have all around the world with U.S. Government aid suspension. And I think it will be something that is very important for us, starting with FOAPS. So I hope you will learn something new today. I hope you will improve what you already know, your knowledge about that. But as Peter said, do not hesitate to use the chat box. If you want to stop me, if you have a question, do not hesitate, and Peter will let me know. So that being said, I want to jump in quickly into the agenda for our webinar of today. So by the end of this session, my objective and our objective is that you acquire relevant knowledge to be able to base your grant research approaches on fact within the general context of the resource mobilization, of course. We want you to be able to improve your grant application development through the design of quality project and program proposal. And we also want you to be capable of integrating into your approach the ethics and the social activities specific to humanitarian associations. So for us to do that, the way we see it is by talking about how to seek grants in the overall framework of resource mobilization. We'll also talk about grant application development, how it works in terms of project proposal and programs. And finally, we'll end with, as I was just talking about, the ethics of the social activities, talking about for the specific case of humanitarian associations. Starting with seeking grants in the context of resource mobilization, it's very important to understand what are I'll say, the general funding sources that one association can have. First of all, where can we get the money, first of all, as an association? Because that's something that we need for us to be able to run our activities, monitor them, maintain the personnel that we have, maintain even the offices that we have. So first of all, it's self-financing. It's more internal, and it's most of the time related to membership dues, and it's related to all internal funding represent the first financial source of a non-for-profit association. So that's the first one, your membership dues, I would say. You also have donation and leg that is carried out without compensation, and they definitely become part of the association heritage. So it's something that you receive. It's more external, and it's also a very good source for funding and accessible too. You have public aid for, depending on the country where you are, it could be more or less easier for an association like us to get it, but it's most of the time in kind or in cash subsidies that are used to finance projects or of general interest. You have sponsorships and patronage, also called sponsorship simply. It allows the federation or the association to finance their activities in exchange of a counterpart or advertisement services. So this could be something that you get from organizing an event, like if I take the case of FOASPS, organizing the high-level policy conference. Those type of event is a good opportunity for raising some additional funds through sponsors and patronage, of course. But it requires a compensation in exchange. Bank financing, we all know, and depending again on the context, the economic context that you have, you as an association can fully get access to any bank loan or any bank credit that are available there um, for your association to raise fund. You have profit-making activities. That is also very important, and I think that this is also something that FOAPS is really keen to, thinking about sustainability. By the way, our project that we've been working on so far is Journey Towards Sustainability. So our goal is that our country federation, by the end of the three years time that we've decided on, would be able to be fully sustainable. And this also passed by working yourself out into these profit making activities, project that you can have, activities that you can do, targeting your members or targeting people outside your association. But anyway, any type of you know for-profit activities that you can have for you to raise money. And last but not least, you have crowdfunding that is more and more, known by people all over the world. And crowdfunding is sometimes related to social media too. We'll talk about that later. But it's really possible for association to use it for them to raise additional funds. So that said, we have an idea of what are the different types of sources when it comes to raising additional funds. But now we want to analyze what are the opportunities and what could be the possible challenges that are related to those sources. And depending on where we are positioning and our different I would say, capabilities, we can decide to prioritize one or over another. But definitely, I wanted to say definitely trying to jump into all of them at the same time would not be the best idea. You want to analyze it, you want to compare to balance your opportunities and your challenges, and being able to wisely prioritize which type of sources you want to use. So depending on the sources, you have a couple of opportunities and challenges. I've made a couple of research and add an additional couple of challenges that we can discuss together, but just for your knowledge or your curiosity. So starting with self-financing, the opportunities will be that your members, they are association like you, they are sharing the same issue that you have. And they would be, by the way, the very first people to be interested in, I would say, investing in your association and federation. And they will, your mission, your vision, your activities will definitely talk to them, and they have an interest, working with you. But the challenges with them is that themselves might have the same challenges as you are facing. So it might be quite difficult or quite slow to raise additional money from them. And they might have themselves some limitations, different type of limitation depending on the context, and especially having in mind that you are part of the same sector, so with the same challenges that you face together. Donation and legacy, the great opportunity with that is that the nobility of the mission pleads for you. So it's something that is already in your advantage. And in terms of challenges, your donors might have not yet been identified. So it's quite difficult to go out there and know exactly from where you can, get this type of connection. And even when you go out there to look for them, you get into a sort of campaign for you to reach out to them, and it has also a cost, so a certain risk that might be limiting for maybe a brand new association, or an association that already is facing some urgent challenges. In terms of sponsorships and patronage, it is the most reliable and sustainable source. Um, and of course, if you make sure to, as we just said previously, to target the right one, to look for the right one, especially at the right time. And of course, if you organize an event that is of their interest, because as I was just mentioning, for this one, there is a compensation, there is an exchange. So of course, you will never get a sponsorship from, I'd say, one of the biggest private clinic in your country if they're not sure that it will be for their interest, if they're not sure that they will be able to, I don't know, give a speech during your event or something like that. Um, and the challenge can be the lack of vision of public actors, and also sometimes, depending on the type of sponsorship and patronage you're looking for or you're relying to, uh, there might be some heavy, I would say, procedures. And also, there is a sort of dependence on their, I would say, their own mission and vision. You want to align to them. So it might be quite a challenge for you to make sure to sort of um, satisfy them. Sorry, the title is repeating here. I just realized that when I was reading through. It's just a problem with translation. But basically, the second one is more, I would say, related to companies, private sector representatives that might be interested in sponsoring your event or sponsoring your association. But as I was saying, you can find yourself in a situation also with conflict of interest. Let me give you an example. You have an association with pharmacists, for example, and you're organizing an event, and you, of course, you might be interested in collaborating with sponsors from your sector that are directly from your association and directly involved into that. So there might be some sort of conflict of interest that can happen there. Of course, you have bank financing that we were just talking about. Um, and depending on where you find yourself, the country where you find yourself, you can have access easier or not, depending on the availability of the bank. And, some of the challenges will be that to identify profitable and bankable activities, first of all, as an association, for you to be, um, you know, solvable or bankable, and for you to receive a finance from the bank, because of course they will not invest in something that they're not sure to get a return on. And sometimes, depending on the bank, they can have a couple of some strict requirements that can be an obstacle for the association. And speaking of, activities that are bankable, you have profit-making activities where you can get an opportunity with the scope of activities that is quite vast, and the different experts services that you can, offer. You have a very large choice there. But the challenge for this can be to be able to distinguish between, gainful activities and the other. So you want to quickly be able to make the difference between them. One obstacle can be taxes and competition, for example, because you're not the only one out there. And once you get into that profit activities, you also want to consider competition. You also want to, make sure that you have the right marketing strategy, that and also that taxes are not that heavy on your activities, because the first objective or the first goal is to raise money, so you don't want to go bankrupt from scratch. And finally, as I was talking about, uh, crowdfunding, it takes some time. So one of the challenges really related to time, and also accessibility to it, that can limitate some association, especially if you're not really savvy when it comes to, you're not very knowledgeable when it comes to social media, because you would need to use social media or those digital tools for you to use crowdfunding. But there are a couple of opportunities that are very interesting with this way of raising money, is that it has a high potential compared to other cases. So that's also something that may be an opportunity that you want to consider, that you want to seize. And for each and every one type of challenge that you have related to the different sources that we talked about, you can, react, if I can say like that, and develop a sort of strategy for them as a response, as an association, for you to make sure that you, first of all, prioritize, as I say, the right one, and you develop the right strategy for that. And as I was just saying from the beginning, this is something that really talked to us, especially FOASPS, because we are right in the middle of that. Um, Self-financing for now is not something that we can fully rely on. So we need to go out there. We need to organize more events. We need to look for, sponsorship. We need to sign MOUs to get more, financial partners. And we are currently thinking about some profitable activities that we can work on, and this is a special case because we are a regional federation, right? So in terms of taxes, as I was just mentioning, you definitely don't want to start those type of activities in a country where taxes are too heavy, for example. So this is something that we strongly encourage you as an association to start thinking about and to start working out. So now that we've talked about the different type of sources when it comes to raising money, and the different opportunities that you have there, the challenges and how you react to them, now you get yourself in there. How do you do that? How do you structure it? How do you monitor it? How do you evaluate, track progress? And how do you showcase to your potential partners that you are fully capable of, managing the fund that you will receive? So we want to start by talking about grant application development that is related to projects and programs. And it is very important um, to know who is the proposal requester first of all, or the grant application recipient. It's very important to make some research, to make some desk research to analyze what are the opportunities out there. You also want to understand the grant application process that is required. Um, when you have a grant opportunity, you want to read it through. I even want to say that this should be at least 50% of your time spent when you're considering grant application development. You really want literally to sit down and read, read, read. Because when you read, the first time you read, okay, it's just for you to get an idea of that. But the more you read it, the more things will get to you. And most of the time, when you have grant application opportunities, you can have a couple of meetings that are organized before working on the actual proposals. And during this time, you can ask questions to make sure that you are on the same page and that you understand um, what are the grant guidelines. Um, and you also want to follow all instructions. You want to meet all the deadlines because that's extremely important. Otherwise, you will lose from scratch because, as I said previously, you're not the only one out there. There are a couple of other associations, other federations that are competing with you, and you definitely need to follow and respect all the requirements. Um, you also want to make sure to get if it's just a one pager or a presentation or a document, something that is ready for you to quickly be able to present your association, what you've done, and what is your perspective, because for you to receive the grant, you will have to showcase that it will have an impact, because most of the time the impact, and especially the social impact of programs or projects, is something that is really, really attracting. So it's very important to really pay attention and to really know how to sell yourself literally. You don't want to miss out this, I don't know, that small meeting that you've had where you talked about gender inclusion, for example. You don't want to miss out that opportunity that you seize to work with the government and to really work out the implementation of one policy thanks to some activities from your association, for example. This is something that can quickly fit into your grant application. And I would say it's pretty much more like an interview, a job interview, right? Because when you have a job interview, you have your job description, the job offer that is out there, and you read it and you compare that to your CV, to your capabilities, and definitely if you have a job offer that is related to, I don't know, um, taking care of a shop, you don't want to showcase your capabilities to, I don't know, to create a movie, for example. You want to fit into that and to really literally, as I said, to sell yourself. And finally, you want to be able to develop those skills in writing a compelling statement of need for your association. You also want to support your claims with reliable data and evidence. That's extremely important. Fact, numbers, and if they fit into your local, I don't know, policies for the government, or regional policies, for example, that's even better. I know that in Africa sometimes, depending on the sector, and especially in our private sector, it can be difficult to get data. It can be difficult to get information out there, but there are some, different way for you to rely on those sources. Rely on, I don't know, could be a study that you did personally with your association from which you collect data. Could be some evidence coming from a national policy, for example, from your government. So you really want to go out there and to be really factual and result oriented. You want to develop also a realistic budget. So it's very important that you showcase those skills in managing budget, in showing that not only you know what are your needs and you can clearly explain them, but you know how to monetize them and how to manage them. You want to demonstrate the impact and benefit for the community. I was talking about social impact, that is very important. And you want also to, um, probably take advantage of networking at conferences and events for you um, to be, I would say, competitive. Some of the common mistakes that you want to avoid is having a poor understanding of the founder's goal and priority. Um, Remember when we talked about the sources of funding that you have, we've mentioned also having reaching to donors, and fortunately or unfortunately, their own goals, their own mission, their own visions can be, something that is very, very affecting um, or influencing the different grants, or the application even, because you want to submit an application that fits into their interests, fit into what they're looking for. And that's very important that you speak their language, that you speak directly to them, and that you're not too general as you submit your application. Another mistake is forgetting the required documentation. You definitely don't want to do that. You can have a very good grant application. You can have, all the project is very interesting. The social impact is there, but you don't follow the requirement as we were talking about previously, or you forget one documentation. It's something that is not good at all. To give you an example, to share the experience with FOAPS, whenever we find ourselves in this situation for grant application or to submit our I would say response or proposal for a grant, we usually have a committee, I would say an ad hoc committee, a small committee that meets just for, working on that project. And we always have one person that is appointed to make sure at the end of the day that we check everything. Checklist, even from the cover page. Francis would confirm, even we go into the detail. Do we have the cover page? Everything is good. Do we have the number of the pages or things like that? The way your documentation is showcased, and even you want to follow the guideline, because sometimes founders, they can go deeper into the detail up to the font. Maybe you forgot and you have different fonts because you've had different people working on the document, right? And when you put them together, you can have different fonts that you want someone to make sure that everything is aligned and you have all the documentation put together. Another mistake is using, inconsistent and inaccurate language. And this can happen, of course, when you have a too large group of people working on the document. So you want to quickly be able to analyze or to identify not only from your association or your federation, but also maybe from external, a couple of experts that can work on your project. Usually, I would say the most important part, you would need someone, of course, who's knowledgeable with everything that's related to finance. You want someone who's knowledgeable when it comes to project implementation, the methodology, and so on. You also want someone maybe who's good at communication and proposal writing, especially having in mind that most of the founders, they speak English. So this is especially for associations that are not English speakers. You want to make sure that you have someone to proofread. But even as being an English speaker, you want someone who has those skills in writing and speaking, the donor's language in the right way. So those are I would say, some of the key position. And at the end of the day, you want someone who put everything together, who sort of manage the project and make sure that the documentation is out there. So make sure not to have a too large group and to avoid this type of inconsistency that can be a big mistake when it comes to grant application. And finally, last but not least, is of course the lack of clear and convincing evidence. You want to be very clear about what you say. You don't want to lie. You want to tell the truth with evidence, with data, with strong support for you to have a strong grant application. So this is one additional information that I put out there just for your personal information to make the difference between what is a request for proposal, um, what is a grant, and generally speaking, when it comes to proposal writing, how does it work for you to have effective proposal writing. And of course, as I was mentioning, it requires a lot of skills that include research, clear objective, realistic budget, and strong evaluation plan. So you definitely want to look for those type of skills with the person that will be in charge of that. And when it comes to grant, as we were just mentioning, you want to really emphasize alignment with the donor's mission, impact, and what they're basically looking for. And for the request for proposal, it's also, I mean, it's more guided by, I would say, the requester, but it's focused really on technical expertise, cost effectiveness, and meeting precise requirements. Um, so, of course, I think the slides are accessible on FOAPS website. So last but not least, here you have a couple, in the coming slides, you have a couple of links where you can get a couple of opportunities for you to raise money in terms of grants. You have grants.gov, first of all. It's the more, I would say, one of the most comprehensive source for finding federal grants from the United States. You have globalgiving.org that connects non-for-profit donors and business in almost any country to support their project. You have le Centre de la Fondation that provides information on foundation and the grants that are available. And you have a couple of many more additional, links from where you can get information on grants and opportunities. To give you an example, FOAPS, we are currently thinking about engaging with DAVEX. That is a very good platform where you can get offers and information on opportunities for raising funds that are out there. So we strongly encourage you to meet together and to consider those opportunities. And for those of you who were with us in Côte d'Ivoire, for the high level policy conference, if you remember, we've had a side conversation with representatives from USAID, and her name is Evelyn, and she has shared a couple of links where you can have some opportunities, but it was with USAID. But most importantly, there were some guidelines because she was, for example, explaining that you can do those spontaneous application with, she was talking about USAID, of course, because she was representing them at that time, but it can be even with any other type of donor where you can go out there and say, hey, this is us, this is our association, this is what we do. This is what we've achieved so far, and this is our perspective. Would you be interested to work with us? That's basically it. And there are so many opportunities out there. So when it comes to some sources for the health sector funding, um, according to your present knowledge of donors policy, you can select those with good funding, with opportunities offer. It depends. So you want to question yourself based on that, if you can do that or not, or which one you would prioritize first. And you also want to analyze what are the other sectors or areas of intervention that are also manageable for you as a federation. Because there are some opportunities that are more transversal that you can get also an offer with. And before talking about writing proposals, responding to these questions here above is very important, and it can help you to factor your alert criteria to fine tune your selection for the call for proposal. So those are the type of questions that you want to answer to as you are prioritizing where to go first when it comes to potential donors, because that list that we shared, you can even have tons of them, even many more. But where do you start? What do you prioritize? That's something very important that you want to consider now. Mm. So based on those questions, you can prioritize what are the type of donors you want to go. And talking about, healthcare sector, grant.gov is a very good place. Fonds pour les ONG also is a website that you can click on that can be interested in. I was just mentioning DEVEX. And finally, there is Amplified Change. But, this is just a suggestion from us, but you can have, as I said, many more that you can get access to. And of course, you want to really find yourself into those events, networking events, conferences where you can meet people, where you can get some opportunities at the right time that might be of interest for your um, federation or your association. Sorry. Okay. So now that we briefly talked about how you submit your application, how you identify the donor, we want to now talk about something that is very, very critical um, when it comes to raising funds. Because like anybody, you're about to give your money to some people. You want to make sure that that money would be used the right way, and you want to make sure that the interest of the person, or the way the person is thinking for using that money, aligns with what you're doing. um, and when it comes to associations, when it comes to health sector, there is this I would say concept of humanitarianism, if I can say like that. That is important to consider too. So as an association, you want to sit down, you want to question yourself. Um, what is our position? Are we a humanitarian association or not? And when we talk about being a humanitarian, I would say, as a noun, is related to a person that is committed to helping people, that is committed to improving the condition of people. And when it comes to the definition as an adjective, is related to, any activity, any initiative that contribute to basically saving lives, or you know helping people within, when they find themselves most of the time within a crisis situation, helping them in urgency. And you also want to get to think about, um, can this apply to the health sector? Can the health sector be a non-humanitarian? Because humanitarianism is definitely all center to people, to human being, the fact of being a human being and getting the right to life, getting the opportunity to be saved, I don't know, or to get a better condition from where you are. So is it the only focus for the health sector? We are representing the private health sector. So there is a part of of profit that we want to also analyze, consider, just to set up our clear position on that and orientate, um, even our grant application, our donors research, that will affect all of this. So you want to sit down and think about that. So this is just a quick reminder of the different type of humanitarian aid that are out there. So first of all, you have the aid coming from the state. That's whenever the government or any public institution is jumping in. Could be a crisis situation where people need help, where people need their condition to be improved. Um, that's will be, and most of the time, that is the state responsibility. You have the philanthropic humanitarian aid that is coming from individual people or a group of particular people that give out the money for helping people in crisis most of the time and improving their condition. Religious humanitarianism is is the same, but is guided by strong belief in religious concept, I would say, or strong belief in your religion. So my religion state that, for example, everybody should get access to opportunity to such and such, and that's the reason why we concentrate our investment into this and that. But of course, it can be perceived as sort of biased or sort of targeting just a group of people from that religion. That's sometimes the perception that people from outside can have. Humanitarian health, of course, is related to any health activities or initiative that is really focusing on helping out people especially during crisis situation or very, very dangerous or problematic situation where they need their their life to be saved or their condition to be improved. And humanitarian aid in crisis and emergency management is something that is very important, and that we've seen so far with global and international institutions such as USAID that we all know. For example, there are some places in the world where they used to very well manage those type of humanitarian aid, and and we hope that this will continue. But that's definitely something that you want to make sure to analyze internally and to position yourself or not where. Um, and also the concept and language of humanitarian aid is very important for you to understand. First of all, the fact that people private lives is very important. When you're saving people, those are there is this part of vulnerability that you also want to consider. It's not because you're helping out people that you will, I don't know, showcase their personal information on what you've done and what type of people it was, who exactly it was. For example, you want to also be ethical when it comes to this approach, I would say. You want to also make sure that you are inclusive in your approach in terms of gender, in terms of disability, in terms of sexual orientation. We were talking about that more and more in the word, race and nationality and so on. If I take the example of HIV, for example, when you go and you help people, you definitely want to consider those, I would say, discriminating uh, situation that can happen and position yourself quickly to that. And you have the duty to intervene against the the sovereignty of the state. So you want to defend also what is the right thing to do, ethically speaking, when it comes to improving the condition of humans in your area or in your place. And also you want to advocate. So there is also this concept for advocacy, and I would say, make some noise out there for humanitarianism actions. And you want also to consider the access to victim when it comes to crisis as an association. Um, because of these issues, sometimes you might not be able to implement a project. You might not be able to monitor a program indicators, for example, because of war, or I don't know, whatever happening, or natural catastrophes. You cannot get access to them. So this is something that you also want to consider. And finally, there is this, I would say, awkward question sometimes, where all this money is coming when it comes to humanitarian um, actions or initiatives. And as I was referring to from the beginning, of course, when you have money, even if it's for helping people, still there are some influences depending on the orientation or the priorities or the interest of the person giving the money. So you definitely want to be knowledgeable when it comes to that too, in terms of a concept. Um, So when it comes to the origin of money that I was just referring to, it is very important that you ensure a diversification of sources. From the beginning, as I was saying, you have different donors, different interests. So you want maybe to have a project with a donor on HIV, a project with a donor on gender inclusion, on saving people lives directly. That is purely humanitarian aid, um, but you definitely want to diversify, and you want to use the money that you receive from partner. Um, you want to use it very wisely, because of course you would have to report on that, and people would really pay attention to it. So you want to be very transparent, very knowledgeable when it comes to budget, when it comes to finance, when it comes to money management, accounting, in general. And if possible, you want to yourself have someone that is auditing what is happening from the external. Most of the time, it's happened with donors. They have their eyes on that sort of control what is happening. So you want to align with that. But in case you don't feel that there is this, you want to show that you are in charge of what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and you have someone controlling or confirming that you're using it the right way. Um, and the investment choices are very, very important, because it's humanitarian aid, so you want to quickly and of course ethically identify what are the priority for you to make the right decision, not only for you but even from the donor's perspective too. And finally, internally, and I think this is something that we talked about last time with Kofi, you want to have an internal charter of ethics, from where you share your core value, and you know how you deal with money internally, and also how you deal with those concepts that I mentioned previously. That could include gender inclusion. That could include any type of discrimination. You want to make sure that you write them down and you have it as a guideline, as you working on those type of project. And finally, you want to be very careful um, with the way you use that money. I remember my very first time that I've met FOASPS team, the entire team in person. It was in Nigeria, in Lagos. And we've had our past presidents, and our at that time it was executive director who organized a very nice dinner at the end of the meetings that we've had with all the country federation at a very nice place by the lagoon. I think it was a lagoon or the sea in Lagos. It was very. I have a very good souvenir from that. But what I remember is that when we were having the dinner, I remember that the executive director at that time raised the fact that um, this dinner is financed by our donor, but we are not entitled to have wine from that money. So she would make sure that if some of us still want to have wine, she will make sure to pay it from her pocket, but not from the donor's pocket. And I remember that time, and I was very, I was very happy to see that, because definitely you want to avoid those type of, using that money for luxury thing, for alcohol, or for personal interest thing. So those are the requirements sometimes that most of the donors make explicitly accessible to the public, that you want to be knowledgeable about, for you to avoid making any type of mistake with them and lose one opportunity. So, to sum up, um, it's very important for an association to be viable, that you have a clear vision of the means for you to achieve your objective. You must put the mobilization of your internal resources at the heart of your financial or your financing strategy for your activities. But you also want to diversify your sources of financing and create the condition for your sustainability. It's very important that you also have a couple of bank of projects with proposal to be, adapted according to the opportunities that you have. But you also want to have, as I was referring to, a team that is ready to work on those type of opportunities quickly and quickly react when the opportunity is out there. You want and you must to promote ethics and good governance in the management of your finance, and you want to communicate on that. That is something that is very important. And finally, as an association or federation, we want to strike a balance between uh, our very nature and the social vocation that we have when it comes to humanitarian relevance. So I hope that you've learned something today. Um, I'm, I'm here to exchange with you. If you have a question, if you have a remark, if you have a contribution to that presentation, feel free to ask. But I will hand over back to Peter as we end this webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Nandi. Thank you for enlightening us and taking us through this very important topic. Uh, as federations, as we are aware of the withdrawal of majority of the or all of the USAID funds, which is was primarily our funding for those of our country federations. So it's very important and coming at a good time for us to be able to have the approaches to be able to search for this for grants that are available to be able to help us continue to be sustainable. Um, I have seen about 3 or 4 people who have put in their names and informations in the chat box. Please, if you haven't done that, please let's do that. Put in all informations that has been requested. And also, okay, at this point, I would like to give the floor to anyone who wants to ask a question. You can just put it in the chat box. If there's any clarifications or any additions you want to make to this conversation, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll read it out for Nandi to respond to. I'll give about a minute or two for that. Okay.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, please just put it in the chat. If you have any comments, you can do the same.
I see Dr. Ba is connected. Greetings, Dr. Ba. Very happy to see that the Federation of Ghana is interested in this module.
Also, if there's anyone who wants to maybe have a contribution or want to say something, I can also give that opportunity to one or two persons, if there's anyone. Okay, we have one question from Momolu S. Johnson. Can Nandi please clarify the issue about inquiry of the sources of funds?
Can you
I don't
come
know,
again?
Anandi, if you, yes, can Nandi clarify the issue about inquiry of the sources of funds? I don't know if that's clear for you, Nandi.
In inquiry, okay. The source of funds.
Um, let me give him the opportunity to ask his question.
Okay.
Thank you, Nandi, for
Momolu,
the
yeah, go ahead.
thank you, Nandi, for the fabulous presentation. It was good. It's educative. My attention is drawn to a slide that said it's good to know the sources of income for your donor. So I wanted a clarity. How does one know the sources of income from his donor before requesting for such fund? That's my question.
Okay, how do you know the source of income? Yes, most of the donors, sorry, go ahead. You have Okay, I thought he was talking. So for most of the donors, this is something that is publicly available. If I take the example of USAID, it's very well known that it is coming from, as we usually say, the generous people of America. So it's coming from taxes collected on the population. You take some other donors, most of the time, most of them, they display who are the people donating or from where they get the money themselves. I hope I got correctly your question. But sometimes from their website or by directly asking them over a meeting, in-person meeting or online meeting that you can have with them, even while applying for a grant. These are the type of questions that you can raise if you don't have access to the information. But I would be surprised that you don't have access to that information. I
Right.
hope this
Thank you, Nandi. Momolu, I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
okay.
yes. All right, thank you. So yes, as Nadia said, most of those organizations clearly state where their funding is coming from, in their websites or in any of their publications. Is there any other question?
And by the way, Peter, if you allow me, this also raised a question with transparency that we were referring to by the end of the presentation, because the donors want to be very clear about that. But you yourself, as an association, you also want to be very transparent with your partners and with your members internally where you get the money. We talked about that lastly when I was referring to diversifying your sources. So you want to clearly be able to tell everyone from where you get your your funding. And I remember one application that we've had recently, FOASPS, with another institution. I don't know if I can mention the name, but we were working on this project with them. And part of the requirements for us to get the funding was to show from where we get the money. I mean, at least the person applying to the grants had to show their different sources of funding. And they clearly share that with us, USAID, Bill and Melinda Gates, and you name it. Because we were talking about interest from donors, right? There is this sort of competition, I would say, between donors sometimes that is happening. Um, for example, they might not be interested in investing in one association that is financed by another donor that does not share their mission, their vision, I would say, in terms of, let's say, gender inclusion, for example, or in terms of, good governance, for example. So those are the type of information that you want uh, to share you yourself with your members, with your potential partners. And normally this is something that themselves they do and they publicly display. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandi, for further clarifications on that. I don't know, I checking to see if there are any other questions. Okay, comment from Dr. Tiala. Thanks, Nandi, for the presentation. No questions from me at this time.
Okay.
Also from Adekunle, thanks for the presentation. So we're already 2 minutes past the hour. I think since there are no further questions, I will just give Nandi 30 seconds to have a final words and come back and close the session for today. Nandi, 30
Oh, 30
seconds.
seconds. That's very precise. Thank you. Okay, so in 30 seconds, I would just say that it was really, really, really my pleasure to share on this topic today with you, because this is something that we see, this is something that is very accurate. I'm really looking forward to continue supporting the country federations to work this out. And I know that we can make it together. And maybe I want to plead with Monsieur Kofi if we could have maybe a deeper module or webinar, maybe if, of course, the federations or the participants are interested in, to see together in details how, for example, you work on proposal writing, for example. I feel like this might be important. Thank you and have a good day. Thank you for your time again.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Bowen, for your message. Thanks, everyone, for joining and for participating. Have a great afternoon and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.